Hello Year 4, it is Mr Sheffield here, and I'm going to do a quick video about your home learning for this week for your numeracy. And you might have guessed by what is on the screen right now that this week's numeracy is going to be focused on decimals. Now, firstly, what are decimals? Just a little quick recap. Decimals are numbers that are in between whole numbers, and I'm going to show you a quick example. So right here, we've got the whole number is 7, and we've got a whole number 8. But in between all of those whole numbers, we've got these tiny other little numbers. These are our decimal numbers. Now, these are the tenths here, because the space between our 7 and our 8, our two whole numbers, have been divided equally into 10 equal parts. Now, the reason I'm highlighting that is because I know when I've been drilling you on fractions that I always use that phrase, that the denominator in a fraction is how many equal parts it's divided into. And so I've divided my gap between 7 and 8 into 10 equal parts, which means each of these is 1/10. So we've got 7.1 and 7.2 and 7.3 and 7.4 and 7.5 and so on. Or you could say we've got 7 and 1/10, or 7 and 2/10, or all the way up here we've got 8 and 6/10. Now, that's all well and good, but in year 4 we do look just tiny bit further into our decimals by not only looking at the tenths, we look at the hundredths as well. So imagine, not only have I divided my gap here, my 7 to my 8, into 10 equal parts, I've also, each of those equal parts, I've divided into 10 equal parts as well. So you can see here, I've got my 8 and my 8.1 and my 8.2, but if you were to zoom in, if you were to use like a little microscope, you might actually find that in between your 8 and your 8.1 and your 8.1 and your 8.2, you've got even smaller decimal numbers. So from 8, you've got 8 and 1/100th, because these have been divided into 10, and if you divide those into 10, you're actually dividing it into hundreds. So 8.01 is 8 and 1/100th. 8.02 is 8 and 2/100ths, and so on. Now, once you get to 8.1, you could, if you'd like to call that 8.10, that's absolutely fine. I've got a number here, for example, 8.14. Now, 8.14 is actually 8. It's 1/10, and it is 4/100ths. Now, I'm going to show you that a little bit more detail here. Oh, I've got 8.12 here. Okay, so here's my 8.12. It is made of an 8. 8 units, 8 ones, okay? It's also made of this here. Now, I'm going to drag all these down, and I've got my placeholder 0 here, so if I'm missing any numbers, then I can put this one in here. So my 1/10 is actually worth 0.1, okay? Now I'm going to put this back, and I'm going to put you back over here. And my 2/200ths, this looks like this. So my 2/100ths are actually 0.02, my 1/10 is 0.1, and my 8 units is 8. So altogether, I have 8.12. So that means I've got 8 units, 1/10, and 2/100ths. Okay. Now I'm going to quickly show you some of the work that you should be doing at home this week. Now I'm going to quickly have a look here. Here's an example of the first. Let me get rid of that. Here's an example of the first day's worth of activities. Okay, so this is just one lesson that you should be doing in one day. Here's 100 square. Now the whole square has been divided equally into 100 different pieces. The whole square has been divided equally into 100 different pieces. So each of these squares is 100. Okay, so there's a questions here about how many hundredths are shaded, how many more do you need to shade, and then you've got a sentence here. Complete the sentence. Something hundredths plus something hundredths is one whole. So you've got this many hundredths, you add this many hundredths, and you end up with 100 hundredths, which is one whole. Okay. Here is a rekenrek with 100 beads, kind of like an abacus. Each bead is 1/100th of a whole. Oh, look, again, we've got 100 beads. Each bead means 1/100th of the whole amount of beads. Again, you've got some little calculations to do here. Now, we've got to fill in the missing digits. 1/10 is how many hundredths? 2/10 is how many hundredths? 70 hundredths is how many tenths? Now, for these kind of questions, what would be really useful is if you drew yourself a place value grid like this. So if I look back at the question, it might say something like, here we go, fill in the missing digits. 2/10 is how many hundredths? Well, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to, whoops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to put a 2, and I don't want 2 units, I want 2/10. 2/10 is how many hundredths? Well, let's have a look. What happens? What am I missing from this box here? Well, I'm missing a 0 from here. I'm also missing a 0 from here. And I'm missing a decimal point, which I'm just going to drag down there. So this is what 2/10 looks like as a decimal. But can you see that maybe if 2/10 looks like this, then how many hundredths do we have? You might also find it useful to draw yourself a 100 square and actually cover in 2/10 of your 100 square and find out how many hundredths you've coloured in. Okay? Now, we've got a question from Dora here. She's asking you a question and you need to decide if you agree or not. You've got some whole part models. That basically means that these two numbers here will add up to something. I'm not going to tell you the answer to the first one, but you can probably clue yourself in by looking at the next 3 questions. This number here is one whole, and so I've got 4/10 down here and 1/10 down here. How many more tenths do I need to add to make my whole? How can I make 10/10? I've only got 4/10 here and 1/10 here. Here I've got one whole. I've got 8 hundredths. How many more hundredths do I need to make my one whole? Here I've got one whole, but to make my one whole I've got 5/10, 3 hundredths, and something else to make my hundredths. Okay, so as you work through these questions, you will read the question carefully. If you do have any questions, I'm sure you'll be able to ask your parents to be able to help you out. So that's the first day, is just looking at making whole numbers. Okay, the second day is about writing decimals. So here we've got some numbers that I would like you to try and make. So here, complete the sentences to describe each number. And again, a place value grid is something that's really going to help you out here. So I've got 3 ones, 2/10, and 5 hundredths. Well, if I look at my place value grid here, let's just drag this to the side here so I can see. I've got, well, 3/10. Oh, sorry, 3 ones. So I'm going to put a 3 in my ones column, my units column. I have 2/10. Right, well, let's have a look. Let's put 2/10. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. Well, okay, so I've got a 3, a 2, and a 5, and I think I'm missing something. I know, because that number there, that says 325, and I don't think that's the number I was trying to make. I do have this little dude up here, my little decimal point. He's really helpful. He's going to go right down there, and now, oh look, I've made my number. So here, 3 ones, 2 tenths, and 5 hundredths, well, there are 3 ones, 2 tenths, 5 hundredths, and the number is the number we made over here, 3.25. Okay, so that's your first one. I'm going to leave you to do the other ones on your own. Now, here it says make each number on a place value chart. So again, draw yourself one of these. It's going to be super useful for you to use your place value grids as you go on. Again, you've got a Alex this time is saying something. You've got to agree or disagree. You've got some fill in the zeros needed as placeholders. So I've just used some placeholder zeros, and you need to see if you can put the zeros in the places where you need to put a zero in. Down here, now just like day one, you've got some numbers that you need to try and put together to make a whole, but this time you're not having 1 as your whole, you're having different numbers. So here you've got to add 2 tenths and 9 hundredths and tell me what that looks like up there. I would suggest for these ones, you might want to use one of your column methods. You might want to use the place value grid and put these numbers on top of each other to help you do calculation, whether or not that's an addition or a subtraction, that's up to you. For this one, for example, I've got 3 tenths, 7 hundredths, and 1 tenth. Put all those together, what decimal do I have? This one here, slightly trickier, be very careful. I've got 0.53. I've got 0.4 of it down there, but how much more do I need to add to 0.4 to make 0.53? That's going to be your task for these ones, okay? Again, here's a part whole model, and you've got 0.72, and now it's up to you to partition your 0.72 into 3 different pairs. So it could be 0.7 and 0.02, or 0.02, 0.02. Language, eh? Language. So you can choose to partition your 0.72 in as many different ways as you'd like. It's asking you to do it three different ways, but if you'd like to do any other way, then you're more than welcome to. So all of this lesson is about writing the decimals themselves. On the third day, you'll be comparing decimals. Now, you will be using these symbols here, the greater than or less than symbols. And because you know how absolutely hilarious my jokes are, they are just, ooh. You should remember this joke. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. Now, if you remember that joke, which you do because it's hilarious, I am laughing on the inside right now, just holding it together. 7, 8, 9 means that the smaller number, if you're imagining your greater than or less than signs, if you're imagining those as a crocodile, the smaller number will be eating the bigger number. So try and make sure that whichever is the smallest number here, you put your place, your greater than sign or the less than sign, eating the bigger number. So here, I'm going to do this first one for you, for example. I've got no ones, no units. I've got 2 tenths, and I've got 4 hundredths. That makes 0.24. Over here, I've got 0.35. So 0.24, 0.35. Ah, you know what? 0.35, that is bigger, that is greater than 0.24. So the smaller number, 0.24, is going to eat the bigger number. So I'm going to make my symbol like this. Okay, I'm going to try and exaggerate it on the screen so you can see it. I'm going to try and make my smaller number eat the bigger number. Okay, and try and do these for all the rest of your questions. Some of them are true or false. Some of them are mistakes. Some of them you've got to make the numbers, put the numbers in here. Could be any numbers you'd like. There's lots and lots of different answers for these ones. And all the way through, it's all about comparing these decimals, deciding which decimal is bigger or smaller than another decimal. Okay, so that's your third lesson. Your final lesson for the week is ordering decimals. So it's not just comparing two decimals at a time, you're actually comparing a sequence of decimals. Now it's very, very similar to the previous lesson, so I'm not going to go too much in depth. Now, there's going to be another lesson added by the end of the week, and there will be some work uploaded to Purple Mash. There'll be some reasoning questions for you to solve. You can find those in the home learning section of the Hudson and the Rio Grande Purple Mash work folders. And if you've got any questions, you can more than happily email or post questions on the blog. Maybe if you'd like to ask for help on the blog from other people, they might be able to help you out as well. I hope that you guys get on with this super, super diligently. I know that you are really hard workers. I'm really looking forward to seeing the work that comes in, and I hope you guys are doing really, really well. And that's all from me, so I shall see you again as soon as possible. Bye-bye.